Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Kalamata, Greece for a Reason to Resist on May 16th, 2026. Today I will deliver my fourth and final report from the Maritime 3 conference held in Athens a few days ago. This conference, as I've reported before, was established about 3 years ago to promote even deeper integration between the economies, militaries, and intelligence gathering systems of Greece, Cyprus, and the genocidal Israeli entity. On May 12th, I managed to gain access to the conference and recorded all of the many speeches in full. About half of them were delivered by senior government officials from the Greek, Israeli, and Cypriot governments, and the other half were delivered by heavy hitters from the private sector in Greece and Israel. The first three of my reports focused on the commentary and speeches of the government officials. This report will focus on power brokers from the Israeli and Greek private sectors. And in some ways, as I hope you'll conclude, their speeches are even more revelatory than the speeches of the government officials we have covered thus far. The dominant theme of almost all the speeches was something called IMEC. IMEC stands for the India, Middle East, Europe Corridor. It is being spearheaded by the United States and is intended, as you will see, as an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which poses a major challenge to Washington's goal of dominating Eurasia. Now, before we get into it, I just want to remind you, if you find this video to be informative, please like and share it. And if you're not already a subscriber to Reason to Resist, please do become one. Help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism and to hit the goal of reaching 200,000 subscribers before the end of the summer, which will mark the 2-year anniversary of Reason to Resist. Now, the IMEC was first announced to the world in September 2023 at the G20 in New Delhi, India. This was only a few weeks before Palestinian militants launched the Al-Aqsa flood operation of October 7, 2023. And of course, there have been plenty of credible reports that Israeli military and intelligence officials had advance warning or understanding that the Palestinian militants were about to launch such an operation. Was the timing of the announcement of IMEC coincidental? Is the fact that it was announced so close to the Al-Aqsa flood purely random? Well, I'm going to leave you to ponder that question. Now, at the time that the IMEC was announced, the EU and seven countries signed a Memorandum of Understanding. And those 7 countries were India, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, France, Germany, and Italy. Interestingly, neither Israel nor Greece were signatories to the MOU, which is strange because the official maps of IMEC clearly show that the corridor is intended to pass through both Israel and Greece. What I've got up here on the screen is a screenshot of a page from the IMEC website that's been established by the governments, the participating governments, and I'll show you a larger map so that you can make out the details. But for now, if you look at the bottom, you will see at the very bottom of this page up on the screen the IMEC corridor shown on a map, and you can clearly see that it goes through Israel, and particularly the port of Haifa, and then on to Greece, which is colored in red. Neither Israel or Greece were signatories, as I just mentioned, nonetheless. And why were they excluded from the MOU? Well, my theory as to why Israel was excluded from the MOU, and admittedly it is a theory only, is that Saudi Arabia did not want it to appear as though it was normalizing relations with Israel. If IMEC is ultimately built, and if it is built on the route that has been proposed by the founders of IMEC, then it will be obvious to the whole world, including the Saudi people in particular, that Saudi Arabia has normalized with Israel, whether or not there is a formal declaration to that effect. The construction of IMEC along the planned corridor means that there will be a huge volume of goods passing through Saudi Arabia to Israel and onwards to Europe. And their economies, therefore, and their infrastructure would become integrated to a profound degree. This creates a political problem for the Saudi autocracy because most of its population utterly despises the genocidal Israeli entity. In late 2023, the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, a generally pro-Israel research organization, surveyed 1,000 Saudis about Saudi-Israeli relations, and the poll found that a stunning 96% of Saudis believe that Arab countries should cut all ties with Israel to protest Israel's genocidal war on the Gaza Strip. Now that's late 2023. Think about all the horrors the world has seen Israel perpetrate against Palestinians in 2024, 2025, and now 2026. If it's at all possible, one would imagine that the level of hostility to Israel amongst the Saudi populace is even higher today than 96%. Now, according to the same poll, 40% of Saudis expressed positive attitudes towards Hamas, compared with 10% in a poll several months before Israel's genocidal rampage began. Only 16% of Saudis surveyed in that poll said that Hamas should stop calling for the destruction of Israel, only 16%, and in order to accept the creation of Palestinian and Israeli states living side by side. The two-state solution to the conflict is what the Saudi government supports. Apparently, at least as of the time that poll was taken in late 2023, a very small proportion of the Saudi population was aligned with the official policy of the Saudi government. So I think this is a pretty good explanation for why Israel's inclusion in the IMEC would have been highly problematic for the Saudi autocracy. That doesn't mean that Israel isn't planned to be part of it. As the maps that these governments have published repeatedly show, and as Israeli leaders themselves openly proclaim, Israel is a key part of it. But I guess the Saudis believe that putting Israel into the MOU might have been a bridge too far for the vast majority of Saudi citizens. Now, this leaves the question of why Greece was excluded from the MOU. Italy is competing with Greece to be India's gateway to Europe. And maybe Italy's government, which I think can verily be said to have considerably more influence in the EU than Greece because of the size of its population, the size of its economy relative to Greece, maybe for competitive reasons, it wanted to keep Greece, at least for the time being, out of the MOU. In that way, it could position itself as the preferable gateway to Europe for India. But frankly, that's only speculation on my part. I don't have any better theory as to why Greece, even to this very day, has not been brought into the contractual relationship amongst the founders of IMEC by adding them to the MOU or some other, supplementary agreement. Now, and as you're going to hear from the speeches, by the way, which I'm about to show you, Italy is clearly trying to get the upper hand on Greece in this project. In any case, it's quite strange that the governments of these two countries, Greece and Israel, are obsessed with IMEC, which was absolutely clear from the speeches at this conference, even though neither of them is a signatory to the founding MOU of the organization, nor have they been formally brought into it by way of a supplemental agreement. Another question that arises from the MOU is, why is the United States a member? This project is about enhancing trade flows between India, the Middle East, and Europe. The United States is on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. The answer, I believe, is that the US is, in fact, the driving force behind this project, because it wants to undermine, or at least diminish to the maximum possible degree, the importance of China's Belt and Road Initiative. And in fact, this objective is openly declared by the arch neocons at the Atlantic Council. This is an article that was published by the Atlantic Council just last year, about 10 months ago, written by Afaq Hussein and Nicholas Schaefer. And it says at the outset, launched in 2023, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor features 3 pillars that integrate existing and future infrastructure: a transportation pillar, the corridor's backbone, integrating rail and maritime networks, an energy pillar with interconnected energy and electricity infrastructure across continents, and a digital pillar providing new fiber optic cables and cross-border digital infrastructure. So you can see, if you include Saudi and Israel in this, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Saudi will have normalized with Israel. This is a broad ranging and deep level of economic and infrastructural integration that is being envisioned by the founders of IMEC. And then this article goes on to state, and here, by the way, you can see the map. You can see that, I just want to point this out for the moment. I'm going to come back and have a lot to say about this in a few minutes. In the right hand of this map, you can see the blue line goes through, it forks just before the Strait of Hormuz. It comes from Mumbai and Mundra in India. And just before it gets to the Strait of Hormuz, it forks. One arm of it on the left goes to the United Arab Emirates port of Fujairah, and the other goes through the Strait of Hormuz and continues on to the Saudi ports of Ras Al Khair and Jubail Dammam. Now, it then continues onwards through Saudi territory. And by the way, you can see, you may be able to make it out here, but this map identifies what it describes as missing links. And remember, this is August 2025. One missing link is a rail, and I would imagine it's intended to be rail and not road transportation, from the Persian Gulf port in the United Arab Emirates of Jebel Ali to the Saudi port of Al Guwaifat. So that's a missing link that needs to be built. And then there's another missing link here in somewhere. It is, yes, from Haifa to Ashdod. You can't make it out, but it's a dotted line in purple. Presumably, it's intended for purposes of this project that there be a rail link built between these 2 main port cities on the Mediterranean of Israel, Haifa and Ashdod. In any case, as you can see, the corridor would go right across Saudi Arabia into Jordan, then into Israel, and from Haifa and Ashdod, there would be the maritime transportation of goods coming, originating many of them from India, others from other parts of West Asia, and they would then be transported to ports in Thessaloniki and Piraeus in Greece, the port of Trieste in Italy, and then Marseille in the south of France. So all of these countries are intended to have a major stake in this project. It's quite clear, as I said, from the commentary at the conference and from the literature on the IMEC, that Italy and Greece and perhaps also France are jockeying for position to be the gateway to Europe of the growing economic power of India. Now, this article goes on to say, and I've highlighted it here in blue underneath the map, the corridor is well placed to be a consequential regional integration and infrastructure initiative in the coming decades, reinforcing supply chain security and aligning Eurasian policy around open, rules-based connectivity. There's that word, rules-based. Supported by market-driven, locally funded investment from a diverse set of countries, IMEC also provides an alternative to existing corridors dominated by a single government, particularly the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, I don't know that the Belt and Road Initiative is any more dominated by a single government than this project would be. All of these countries are, even India, the particular government that is in power today, are to varying degrees vassals of Washington. And it's very clear that Washington is spearheading this project. That's exactly why it is a member of the MOU, a founding member at that. So what Washington is really trying to do is to set up an economic corridor from South Asia into Europe and through West Asia that it and its vassals will control. And ultimately that means that Washington will control. So that's what's really going on here. And that is why Washington and its servants in the region are so anxious to get this project off the ground. Now, clearly the IMEC has a long way to go, and I think you can get a good sense of that by taking a gander at the MOU that was signed in September 23. This document is remarkably short. As you're going to see, it's less than 2 pages long. This is the first page I put up on the screen, and it says there's 5 paragraphs there. The IMEC will be comprised of 2 separate corridors: the East Corridor connecting India to the Arabian Gulf, and the Northern Corridor connecting the Arabian Gulf to Europe. It will include a railway that, upon completion, will provide a reliable and cost-effective cross-border ship-to-rail transit network to supplement existing maritime and road transport routes, enabling goods and services to transit to, from, and between India, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and Europe. Along the railway route, participants intend to enable the laying of cable for electricity and digital connectivity, as well as pipe for clean hydrogen export. This corridor will secure regional supply chains, increase trade accessibility, improve trade facilitation, and blah, blah, blah. Then you go over to the second page. You'll see there's just another paragraph and a half there. It concludes with the language: today's Memorandum of Understanding is a result of initial consultations. It sets forth political commitments of the participants and does not create rights or obligations under international law. So it's not actually a binding legal document. Basically, it's just a proof of concept. I mean, it's not even a proof of concept. It's just a grand idea that they cooked up in Washington in consultation with their vassals in the region to try to diminish the importance of the Belt and Road Initiative, to really bring this home bring this project to fruition. You're going to require a lot more negotiation, a lot more, many more detailed provisions and agreements around the various aspects of this project, this massive project, which would engage expertise from various fields. At the end of the day, what you would have, if this was, on a serious project that was going to be implemented in the reasonably near future, you would have literally, volumes of various agreements and supplementary agreements and annexes that would in fact create rights and obligations. So this thing, quite apart from the fact there are sections of it that remain to be built, and for our purposes today, perhaps most importantly, a devastating war that is currently happening in the heart of the region where this thing is supposed to be built. This thing is a long way away from being anywhere close to a reality. Now, as you will see, and this was admitted, albeit indirectly, by the speakers at the Maritime 3 conference, one of the obstacles the IMEC now confronts is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz by the military of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Why do I say that? Well, obviously I say that because the plan at the very outset from September 2023 was for this corridor to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm going to put up on the screen a larger version of the map that I showed you a moment ago. And there you can see quite clearly that the plan is for the corridor to consist in the India to West Asia branch, the eastern branch of a maritime transport route passing through the Strait of Hormuz and to Saudi ports and Emirati ports. And so even though a lot of the propagandists who spoke at this conference, and I've talked about this in prior reports on what happened at the conference, were asserting, without explaining in any way why they were saying this, that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz proves how essential IMEC actually is. The reality is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has thrown a massive spanner into the works because now that Iran has effective control over the Strait of Hormuz, the only way to build the IMEC on the planned route is either to bring Iran into the organization and accord to it a significant degree of the economic benefits, which is obviously something that the United States and Israel and the United Arab Emirates would never agree to, and probably Saudi Arabia would object as well. But at bare minimum, they would disagree. The French might very well disagree, the Italians, the Greeks. That just ain't going to happen. They aren't going to bring Iran into the MOU. So what then is going to happen? How can you bring this project to fruition if Iran's military has control of the Strait of Hormuz? Well, somehow you are going to have to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to show you an excerpt from the Maritime speech of a character named Drafus, who is an Israeli venture capitalist whose focus is on international shipping. And during his speech, Drafus showed the audience a map of the IMEC. And I took a shot of it. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. Now, as you can see, this map is different from the one that appears on the website of the IMEC. This map shows the line from India into West Asia, not going through the Strait of Hormuz, but going through the Gulf of Oman and then crossing the United Arab Emirates, and then continuing from there from the Persian Gulf side of the United Arab Emirates. It has a coastline on the Gulf of Oman and another coastline on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz on the Persian Gulf. Going from that Persian Gulf coastline of the UAE to Saudi ports on the eastern coastline of Saudi Arabia. So this map is materially different from the one that appears on the website of IMEC. So perhaps what these people are now envisioning is that rather than going through the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to, the plan would be for goods to be transported from India to the United Arab Emirates port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, and then transported by land across the UAE to the Persian Gulf side of the UAE. From there, reloaded onto ships and transported by means of maritime transportation to Saudi ports. And from there, they would continue their journey towards Europe across a rail line that would go into Jordan and then into the genocidal Israeli entity. There's a problem with this, however, and the problem again is Iran and its formidable military. The Iranian military clearly has other ideas, as you can see from this map. This is a map that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps published on May 4th, 2026, a couple of weeks ago, defining a maritime zone between Keshem Island and al-Quwain in the west, and Mount Mubarak and Fujairah in the east, over which it claims authority over maritime traffic. So you can see that Iran is now asserting control of the waters in the Gulf of Oman that one would have to cross in order to go to the port of Fujairah. And there is absolutely no indication, no reason to believe that the US Navy or any other force or combination of military forces is going to be able to stop the military of Iran from obstructing maritime traffic to the port of Fujairah. In fact, Iran has struck facilities in the port of Fujairah repeatedly and has demonstrated that even with its much vaunted air defense systems, they can't even protect land-based targets on the Oman, Gulf of Oman coast of the United Arab Emirates. So this idea, which appeared to be embraced by Drafus in his speech, at least it was what appeared to be part of the Plan B based on the map that he was showing during the course of his speech, that isn't going to fly either. Plan B ain't going to work as long as the Iranian military is asserting control over the waters that one would have to cross to reach the port of Fujairah, and has the ability to maintain control over those waters. Very importantly, Nobody, not one person, I listened to all their speeches carefully. I videotaped them all. Not one person at the Maritime conference attempted to address this conundrum. Let's now turn to the speeches of the heavy hitters from the private sectors of Israel and Greece. We're going to start with a clip. It's the only part of his speech that I thought was worthy of mention, of the venture capitalist from Tel Aviv, Raphael Drafus. As I mentioned, he focuses on maritime shipping. Here's part of what he had to say.
That compared to Piraeus and Thessaloniki, compared to Greece, Italy is moving forward. They are putting a lot of efforts, a lot of funds, and a lot of PR into this issue. And from that point of view, from our point of view, Greece can definitely be the gateway to Europe. But we need economic incentives in order to move these things forward. We can do, the government can do decreases of VAT. They can give incentives on customs. They can do a lot.
So, first of all, he's openly acknowledging, as I mentioned, there was a fair bit of chatter about this, that Italy is got a head start competing with Europe to be with Greece to be the gateway of Europe. Why the Israelis, at least at this conference, were favoring Greece over Italy, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that there has been massive protests in Italy during the last 2 years of genocide. Probably a lot more opposition to the genocide, at least in the streets. I'm not talking about general public opinion, but in the streets in Italy. Maybe that has something to do with it. But in any case, he then goes on to say, like the typical greedy capitalist, that the Greek government can do lots of things by handing out goodies, paying for the infrastructure that we are going to profit from, lowering taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, whatever, giving subsidies. He's basically asking for a government whose finances have been utterly destroyed by austerity to dole out goodies to rich venture capitalists like him.
Having said that, we've got our choke points, and these choke points are easily solvable. They just need the right efforts and the right decision making. I'll give you a small example. At the moment, at any given time, there are 300 to 400 trucks standing at Sheffield Bridge, the border between Jordan and Israel, at any given day. This is a clock which we cannot afford. The border between Israel is working 40 hours a week. This is not relevant for an international presumptuous borderline which comes and solves the IMEC. So there are a lot of things that can be done. The simple things are initial. Start opening the border with more time. But there are many, many other steps that can be solved. Once we have a collaboration between Israel and Greece, and we've got the top down and the bottom up working together, we can make miracles. In that sense, this is the ideal aspiration we want to see. We want to see cargo naturally and positively moving between India, through Bahrain, or Jebel Ali for that matter, through Haifa and to Piraeus and Thessaloniki, and vice versa. Once cargo, like I said, flows like water on a rock. It will find the right path, the right choice for it. It is a combination of transit time and price. We've got to be there.
Now, a few things there. Notice how he said the cargo will find its path like water on a rock. No, it won't. There are serious constraints, economic, geopolitical, logistical, to cargo taking any particular path. You need to have massive amounts of investment and stability, an absence of war in order for cargo to find a path to its particular desired destination. And notice when he was talking about this, he just glossed over this by saying, oh yes, cargo will work miracles. It'll naturally find its path like water in a rock. He didn't say anything about the Strait of Hormuz. And this is the guy who put up that image, as you can see, where the line from India, the planned route of the corridor, the economic corridor from India to the Persian Gulf goes through the United Arab Emirates and not through the Strait of Hormuz. But he didn't say anything about that. The other interesting part of this speech was he talking about the delays on the border between Jordan, because as I mentioned, and you can see on this map, the IMEC is planned to go through Jordan and then into the genocidal Israeli entity, using principally the port of Haifa to transit goods onto Europe. He says, that border is only open 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week, that's less than 2 full days. I can attest to this because I tried to get into the occupied West Bank in October of last year, traveling over the Allenby Bridge from Jordan into the occupied West Bank. I wasn't allowed to go in because I was told by the Israeli border official that wherever I go, I criticize Israel. So they barred me from entering territory over which they have no legal authority. Their occupation of the West Bank, as the ICJ has ruled, is illegal. Nonetheless, I can attest to the fact that it was very difficult to find a day where you could go to the border just to take a shot at getting into the occupied West Bank, because it was closed much of the time. And this is coming from the Israeli side principally, not from the Jordanian side. When I came back after they rejected me, it was relatively easy for me to get into Jordan. But getting into Israel was a real chore. There are huge levels of security and scrutiny at the border facility on the West Bank side of the Allenby Bridge. It's incredible. It's Orwellian what you have to go through there. So he's not looking at this from a security perspective. He just wants to make money. So he's saying we got to solve this problem. Well, how are you going to solve that problem? How are you going to solve that problem when the Israeli government is behaving in ways that is enraging the people of Jordan? That's exactly why the Israeli government is so strict with security at border crossing points between Jordan. They've actually had Jordanians, this has happened during the genocide, go and shoot dead Israeli border guards as an act of solidarity and retaliation for the genocide against the Palestinian people. You're not going to solve that problem when Israel is behaving like a psychopath. Now, let's move on to the next speaker. He is the president of the Athens Chamber of Commerce. His name is Ioannis Baratos. He has a master's degree in political economy from the London School of Economics. And as you're about to hear, Baratos began his speech by shamelessly promoting right-wing politicians from Greece and Cyprus.
Let me tell you that for those that are Greeks, in a few months we have elections, so if you vote in the southern part of Athens,
Okay, so you see this character here sitting on the left, sitting down in the front row on the left. He has a red tie. He's the second person on the left. That is Charis Theocharis. He is the deputy foreign minister of Greece from the governing right-wing New Democracy Party. And I've already covered the speech that he gave. It was really quite a doozy. But this man was oozing love and affection for the fascist genocidal entity. And here you have Baratos, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, telling this crowd, there's an election coming up in Greece. Please vote for this wonderful politician, Charis Theocharis. And then he goes on from there.
he's a candidate, he's a great candidate. Also, it's a great honor to be with Noam. Noam is a very good friend of mine. We've worked together when I was in the government as well, and he's a great guy. We will miss you in Athens.
So there he's talking about the Israeli ambassador to Athens, Noam Katz. He's saying he's a wonderful guy, personal friend of mine. We're going to miss you. Apparently, Noam's tenure as the Israeli ambassador to Greece is coming up. And he wasn't the only, ass kisser at this conference to lavish love and affection on the Israeli ambassador to Greece. But it doesn't stop there.
Miss you in Athens. And I will. Probably a very good friend of mine as well. And let me close short about Averov and tell you that Averov is a great politician, and I think that I will dare to say that if the Cypriot voters were wiser, Cyprus would be a different country right now. So Averov is a great.
Okay. He said if Cypriot voters were wiser, Cyprus would be a better country right now. What he's talking about, he started that part of his speech by referring to one of the other speakers, a character named Neophytou, who was the communications minister in Cyprus who is extremely right-wing. His party was in power, I think, about a decade or 15 years ago. That's when he was the communications minister. Then he became the leader of the party. Now he's a member of parliament, but he's in opposition. This clown stood up, as I covered in a prior episode, in his speech and looked at the Israeli ambassador and said to him, in front of all of these, these characters, now you've started the war, you need to finish the job. And if we're going to suffer for it, and we will, it's a price we need to pay. Just came right out and said it. You can find it in my prior reporting on this conference. So this guy, the president of the Athens Chamber of Commerce, is saying if Cypriots were wiser, they would have voted that guy back into power, but they're not wise enough. Now let's listen to the rest of what Baratos had to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor for the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry to participate in the Maritime conference, an institution that is evolving into a meaningful platform for dialogue, cooperation, and business networking between Greece and Israel. This year's events in Athens follows two highly successful meetings, and it is another step towards maintaining the momentum that has already been created within the Greek-Israeli business ecosystem. Greece and Israel are two countries with a strong historical identity, resilient societies, and dynamic economies. They are also, however, two countries that are now called upon to play a new role to serve as bridges between Europe, the Eastern Mediterranean, the Middle East, and India, to act as hubs of stability, innovation, trade, energy, technology, and security. At a time of geopolitical turmoil, market uncertainty, pressure on supply chains, and energy challenges, the Eastern Mediterranean is acquiring renewed strategic importance.
Now, he's talking about stability, and he claims that Israel is a source of stability in the region. I mean, what drug is this man smoking? And he's going on to say, he's acknowledging that there are geopolitical problems, there's turbulence, there's friction in the region, but at no point is he prepared to acknowledge or perhaps even contemplate the obvious, which is that Israel is the primary source of all of that turbulence and instability. He's actually presenting Israel as the source of stability.
Wow. No longer a transit region, but is a region of potential. A region where new corridors of cooperation, new investment opportunities, and new value chains can be shaped. In this context, the prospect of India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor is of particular importance. Beyond a major geoeconomic infrastructure project, can signal a new development model in our region, a model that can connect ports, transport, energy, logistics, digital infrastructure, investment, and human capital. For Greece, this role is a natural fit. Our country lies at the southeastern edge of the European Union, has a strong shipping sector, upgraded port infrastructure, a significant geostrategic position, and businesses that have proven to be resilient to compete in an international environment. For Israel, the potential is equally evident. Technology, innovation, security, agricultural know-how, water, energy, and outward-looking entrepreneurship. I didn't see you. It's great to be here. The complementarity of our two economies is our great advantage. Greece can offer access to the European market, maritime, trade infrastructure, tourism, an industrial base, and regional connectivity. Israel, on the other hand, can offer technological excellence, innovative solutions, experience in security, high-yield agricultural production, and the management of critical resources such as water. This cooperation can acquire an immediate business footprint in shipping and ports through joint investments and interconnections in energy through projects in renewable sources, storage, networks, and security of energy, in defense and security through technological synergies, in agricultural innovation through solutions for smart farming, water saving, and resilience to the climate crisis.
So he is basically telling us that Greece and Israel is a marriage made in heaven. From an economic perspective, from an agricultural perspective, from a trade perspective, from a security perspective, from a military perspective. You can't imagine two states that were more destined to be together as one. That's exactly how he's presenting it, this right-wing business hack who never once in his speech mentioned Palestine or Palestinians, never gave the slightest hint that Israel is violating international law, human rights, is a source of instability in the region, has caused the Strait of Hormuz to be seized by the Islamic Republic of Iran. All of that is effaced entirely from the discussion. It wasn't just this character, by the way. This was true of every single person who spoke at this conference. There was not a peep of criticism uttered of Israel, not even an indirect suggestion that Israel shouldn't have attacked Iran, is violating international law, and not an iota of concern, not even a mention of the Palestinian people. Finally, the main event for the private sector speakers was a panel of 5 individuals. They included the Chairman of Israel Shipyards, Shlomi Fogle, the Chairman of Israel Ports Authority, Hetzi Halavia, and Greece's Special Envoy for IMEC, Ambassador Alexis Konstantopoulos. That's right, folks. The Greek government considers IMEC to be so vitally important that it has appointed someone to be the ambassador to IMEC. Konstantopoulos is Greece's former ambassador to Saudi Arabia and Yemen. He has a degree in finance, banking, and insurance from the University of Paris. The panel was moderated by someone named Mariano Yiannopoulos. Like so many of the Greeks who spoke at this conference, Yiannopoulos was educated in Britain and worked in the banking sector. It's indeed truly amazing how many members of the Greek political elite are former bankers who were educated in the United States, Britain, or France. Indeed, the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has a degree from Harvard and worked for Chase Bank in London before becoming the Prime Minister of Greece. Interestingly, however, the degree he obtained is not in finance or banking. Rather, he obtained a degree in social studies from Harvard, and it's a little difficult to see how that qualified him to be a well-heeled banker at Chase in London. Maybe Chase gave him the job because he's the son of another Prime Minister, Konstantinos Mitsotakis, and was obviously groomed from a young age to be a prime minister himself. In any case, it's almost as if the banks have taken over the government of Greece. And this problem is one that afflicts the whole of Europe and indeed Canada. Germany's Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, was the head honcho at BlackRock Germany. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, was a banker at Rothschild Bank. Former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi was a Goldman Sachs banker, and so too, by the way, was Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Let's look now at what these heavy hitters from the private sector in Israel and Greece had to say about the IMEC.
As Greece's special envoy for IMEC, how do you assess the current stage of the initiative? What are the key steps needed in order to move from political commitment to concrete implementation? And how can Greece position itself as a reliable European gateway for IMEC, not just to ports, but to logistics, rail, energy, and infrastructure, and have access to Eastern Europe?
Thank you, Maninos. Thanks to the organizers, thanks to everybody for being here, for being present.
Okay, so this dude is the Greek ambassador to IMEC, former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman. Let's listen to what he has to say.
IMEC is in everybody's mind, also in everybody's heart. I think it's very important that we connect on IMEC here. Greece and Israel have old strategic relations since many years, and it's a very important factor in the way we approach our regional integration, not only within the Mediterranean, but also through the Indo-Pacific. I think IMEC is, as you said, Marino, a very important project. I think we need to be fair on IMEC. Things are being done. Everybody's working a bit in his own way. We in Greece were trying to do some things. Today is taking place in Cyprus, an important meeting between our ministers of energy, the Greek and the Cypriot Minister of Energy, together with the EU Commissioner of Energy, and they're going to discuss the Great Sea Interconnector, which is an electrical connection that will connect Greece to Israel, to Cyprus, and then to Israel.
So as I explained in a prior report from this conference, this super duper Great Sea Interconnector is a system that is a subsea cable system that is essentially going to enable Israel to make Greece energy dependent upon the genocidal entity. They couldn't stop talking about this project at this conference. The only subject that took up more oxygen was IMEC itself.
Many things are being done. There is already the Blue Amman cable that is being put in place and that will connect all of us, and many other cables that will be promote this connectivity that we all want. Now, September 23. Why hasn't it become more concrete since then? Well, first we know that there are 8 parties to the IMEC declaration. You know which these are. It's the United States, it's Germany, France, Italy, the EU, India, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. In the MOU, they speak about Israel and Jordan. So it's part of the first wave of expansion of the IMEC will certainly be in that direction. Also, geography and geographical logic is quite clear. Greece needs to be part of the first wave of expansion because it will be the first gateway of the IMEC in the Mediterranean.
So let's just stop there. He notes correctly that Israel and Greece are not parties to the IMEC, even though it is planned that, and the whole world knows this, that the IMEC would run through Israel and then on to Greece. But he doesn't offer an explanation for why they aren't members of the IMEC. And one would think that somebody with his diplomatic credentials, having been an ambassador to Saudi Arabia, in addition to Oman and Yemen, a lot of experience in the region, would have some clue as to why Israel was not actually a party to the MOU and still isn't a party to the MOU. But he doesn't offer any kind of an explanation.
It doesn't mean that within Europe we need to antagonize ourselves. There is space for everybody. Greece has a comparative advantage to be able to better serve the Balkans, Eastern Europe, part of also further up, Ukraine, Moldova, which is already being done with the vertical corridor that was set up, and that we know that our bilateral relation helped a lot also with setting up of the vertical corridor, because we have the 3+1 political coordination between Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the US, and that's how the vertical corridor was set up. So a lot of things are being done individually. We just need to connect the dots to put everything together. Now.
So you heard at the outset of his comments, he's acknowledging that this project hasn't moved along nearly as quickly as they would like. He's also acknowledging that Greece has competition from other European countries, principally Turkey, but he sums it all up with a cliche: all we got to do is connect the dots. I'm not sure how you're going to connect the dots between India and Saudi Arabia, given what Israel and the United States have provoked in the Strait of Hormuz. But hey, why bother ourselves with such details?
Political circumstances, geopolitical circumstances in the Gulf region are not really helping us. But as one of the previous speakers was saying, exactly because what is the choke points Bab el-Mandeb, the Straits of Hormuz, has shown us how important it is to put the IMEC in place.
Okay. As I just explained, the precise opposite is true. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz, far from showing us how important it is to put the IMEC in place, which is what he just said, has basically driven a nail in the coffin of the IMEC as it was originally conceived. There's no way, as long as Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, including the waters off of the Emirati port of Fujairah, for the IMEC to be completed. And you're going to have to find a way to get the goods from India or to India without taking them either through the United Arab Emirates or the Strait of Hormuz. No one had any suggestion for how that was going to be done. They just pretended that the problem doesn't exist. And they even went further. They said the existence of the problem proves how essential IMEC is. I mean, the level of intellectual dishonesty amongst these, blue-suited bankers boggles the mind.
To be able to have a secure connection, a secure and safe connection between India, the Middle East, and Europe. So now I think the IMEC is more necessary than ever, and I think that is something that's quite evident to everybody. Now, of course, we would have wished things would have advanced more quickly, but things are being done slowly. We hope that the political stalemate will be surpassed very quickly, and we will be able to advance. Now, Greece has a lot to offer. The comparative advantages of Greece in the IMEC are not only geographical, it's also because of the country we are. We're an EU member state, we're a NATO member state. We have strategic relations with Israel, with Saudi Arabia, with the UAE, with India, with the United States. We are a force for peace and stability in the wider region, and we can help all the partners connect the dots together.
How can you be a force for peace and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean when you have aligned yourself 100% without any qualification whatsoever with the most lawless, violent, rogue state, not only in the region, but arguably in the entire world, namely Israel? It's blowing up the entire region, setting it on fire, forcing the destruction of infrastructure, bringing about the destruction of infrastructure, causing huge amounts of environmental contamination, massacring stunning numbers of civilians, including children, women, targeting journalists, targeting medical workers, emergency workers, destroying schools, destroying universities. This is what this man describes as peace and stability. Israel and its relationship with this vassal of Washington, Greece, is fostering peace and stability in the region.
So we need to see the glass half full and not half empty. Of course, we know what's happening. We know that there are a lot of other corridors that are trying to be set up. We don't need to talk about them. But obviously, there is a big opportunity for this IMEC to be set up.
A lot of other corridors being set up. I imagine that one of those corridors that he had in mind is the Belt and Road Initiative, but he didn't even want to mention it for some reason.
And it would be a great vector of connectivity for all of us. It will link much better Europe to the Indo-Pacific. It will integrate Israel and the Middle East and Greece in this very important route. And the opportunities are there. They're clear to all of us. That doesn't mean that we can start working on them, that we need to wait to start working on them. Each one of us, we need to start working on the IMEC from our part, and then when times will be ripe, we can put what we have done together. But it's very important that in this context, Greece and Israel start working together from now, and we need to see how we can bring our business communities closer together in that regard to bridge the gap between our political commitments and what is being done on the ground. Thank you.
Now, I can't stress this enough. If you're actually making rational use of Greece's very limited resources, Greece, by the way, is one of the most indebted governments in the world. I think its current debt to GDP ratio is in the range of 180%. I think only Japan has a higher debt to GDP ratio than Greece does. So this is a country that has very scarce resources and is already squandering them shamelessly by increasing its military spending to 5% of GDP. So in such constrained economic circumstances and fiscal circumstances, you shouldn't be, if you're thinking rationally in the interests of Greece, of the state of Greece and the people of Greece, you shouldn't be investing huge amounts of money in this project unless you know, or at least have a high level of confidence that the project makes sense and that it will be implementable. But as I've said, and I'm going to repeat myself, thanks to the insane aggression of Israel and the United States, the project is no longer implementable as it was originally envisioned. You cannot take the goods from India through the Strait of Hormuz to Saudi Arabia and to the United Arab Emirates and potentially to Bahrain, all of which are to varying degrees hostile to Iran in the current circumstances, and you can't solve that problem militarily. You can only do it by bringing Iran into the IMEC or making other massive concessions to Iran, which will induce the Iranians, incent the Iranians to give up control of the Strait of Hormuz. And there's absolutely no indication that any of these characters, any of the governments of the West are inclined to make significant concessions to Iran. So the Greek government is basically talking about, this person represents the Greek government. He is the ambassador to IMEC. And he is urging governments, including that of Greece, to move forward with the massive investments necessary to realize this project when the project from a practical perspective is no longer implementable.
I think that gives me a good kind of next question to you, Mr. Fogle. So IMEC is often discussed just in diplomatic and political terms. But at the end of the day, goods move through ships, ports, terminals, and logistic companies and industrial operators. So from the perspective of the maritime industry in shipbuilding, how could IMEC reshape the role of the Eastern Mediterranean in global trade flows? And what opportunities could emerge from Israeli and Greek companies in shipping, port services, and maritime technology and supply chain resilience?
Okay, this character who's about to speak here on the right is Shlomi Fogle, the chairman of Israel Shipyards.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll tell you from my experience, okay, because I'm doing it on a daily basis. We bought the shipyard from the government in 1995. The company went bust, and today it's valued over $1 billion. And we're doing 5 things there. We turned part of the shipyard to a port. My view was then already to connect it to Jordan, okay, and I'll explain in the second why. Second thing is we're producing military boats. By the way, we're interested to buy here a shipyard, a medium-sized shipyard for producing here. So it's very important for us.
Yes, now the chairman of Israel Shipyards is telling us that he wants to purchase a medium-sized shipyard in Greece. Greece has about 10 active shipyards. So depending upon how large the shipyard they were to acquire, they would have a very significant stake in the shipbuilding industry in Greece were they to do this. And no one at this conference of the speakers seemed to push back at all at the idea that the genocidal entity should be authorized to purchase a shipyard in Greece's all-important shipping sector.
Third thing is we own ships and we manage them globally, bulk carriers and cement carriers. And the other business which we're doing here, we import from Cyprus, from Greece and other countries, cement and building material for Israel. And we are managing a few ships going up and down between Alexandropolis and Haifa. And we've got also the offshore drilling services for Chevron. We're doing it in Haifa. Now,
You heard him say they import cement from Greece. Of course, cement is used widely in the construction of military facilities. That doesn't seem to pose a difficulty for the government of Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
if you look at first of all, the geographic, there are two actually valleys that are going eastbound. One is in Iskanderun, and one is in Haifa. And that's why I call Haifa the gateway to the Middle East. And this is also the British built the refinery. Shell refinery was built there. All the pipeline from Mosul in the past moved to Haifa, and from Haifa they exported oil. And we are today starting to develop. We started a long time ago to develop the business between Jordan, Iraq, Bahrain, Saudi, and UAE.
So he's admitting that Saudi Arabia is doing business with the port of Haifa already. One wonders whether there is, really any truth to the claim that Saudi Arabia is not, in substance, a member of the Abraham Accords. Certainly it isn't formally, but if it's doing business with Israel under the table to an extensive degree, what difference does it make whether it's formally signed on to the Abraham Accords or not? It is providing economic benefits to Israel at a time that Israel is setting the entire region on fire and committing genocide against the Palestinian people.
Haifa, okay? And it takes a long time. It was complicated because to bring a big ship of 24,000 containers from around the Suez Canal from Jabal Ali to Haifa, it takes it's much cheaper than actually to take a truck, which is cost me about $4,000. Today might be a little more, $4,000 from Jabal Ali to Haifa. Okay, and therefore there are capabilities of doing business not only through the IMEC but also in potential to Jordan and Iraq. I will give you an example. I just completed an investment of $100 million in the port of in our port for grain terminal, the most advanced grain terminal, which we are serving grain that is coming from Russia, Ukraine, USA, and South America to Israel. And we will start very soon, and we did it in the past, to transfer grain also to Jordan. You know what is the difference?
Just pausing there, you heard him talk about Jabal Ali. This is a port in the United Arab Emirates. He's saying, interestingly, that it's cheaper to send goods from Jabal Ali in the UAE to the port of Haifa by ship, which means it would have to go through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait into the Red Sea and then through the Suez Canal. It's cheaper to do that, despite the length of the journey, than it is to transport goods from that port to Haifa by truck. And he's saying if you build the IMEC with its rail links, then it'll become cheaper and to transport goods over land than by sea to Haifa from the United Arab Emirates. And all of this is just going to, of course, if it were implementable, and it currently isn't, would deepen economic ties between Israel and the Gulf autocracies.
If we will reduce the pita bread in Jordan by 5 to 10%, and we are able to do it because of costings, because today they have to do all the round trip to Aqaba, and from Aqaba it will take them another 350 kilometers. If they bring it to Haifa, 68 kilometers away in Jordan. So the difference is very big, and I've got a meeting with His Highness King of Jordan, and he allowed us now to move the train into Jordan. This will make a big difference for export. Meeting with His.
Let's just listen to this again. I'm quite blown away by what I think he says here.
8 kilometers away in Jordan. So the difference is very big, and I've got a meeting with His Highness King of Jordan, and he.
Now, I don't know about you, but it sounded to me like he said the Zionist king of Jordan. Listen to it one more time.
8 kilometers away in Jordan. So the difference is very big, and I got a meeting with His Highness King of Jordan, and he allowed us now to move the train into Jordan. This will make a big difference for export of phosphates that is in the north of Jordan via Haifa, and also bringing grain and other bulk commodities for Jordan and Iraq.
So whatever he may have said, whether he referred to the Jordanian tyrant as a Zionist or not, he's clearly telling us that this autocrat, who is in fact a Zionist for all intents and purposes, is enhancing Jordan's economic relations with Israel at a time when Israel is carrying out a genocide against the Palestinian people.
We've done it before. We've got the warehouse on the bridge in the King Hussein Bridge, and we've got also interest in the free zone in Jordan Gateway. And what we could tell everyone here from the business side, there are huge opportunities. And what I've seen, that Greece is the right place for us to connect with ro-ro ships, with trucks, and going on a ro-ro ship continuing, and that's why we are participating in the tender in Lavrion. Let's see, it's already a year. Why does it take a long time here to deliver a project like this? I don't know, but obviously Israel is it's much slower. But just to tell you, but definitely we will be interested to develop this business. And my idea was taking trucks on a railroad that we will own and move it up and down all the time, fuel rovers, and move cargo to Israel and to Greece, and Greece will be the gateway to Europe for us. And this is where I can see the opportunity. This is one thing. The second thing is there are huge opportunities in high-tech in Israel, and definitely people probably don't realize that about 56% of our export is high-tech. All the ports is low-tech, okay? And what we are encouraging everyone to come, to meet people, to discuss with partners, to do some business there, because our opportunities are very big. And just to give you two numbers, which I thought that is very interesting on the business side. I asked the other day how much options the Israelis has got that working on the high-tech side. All the workers, how much options actually, what is the value of the options that the workers has got? And just for your information, $50 billion.
So I just want to pause there. I think what he's saying is they have determined that the paper value of the stock options owned by Israelis in Israeli public companies, and I think he might just be limiting it here to the high-tech sector, but or maybe he's talking to about all of the public companies in Israel, is amounts to $50 billion. So there's this huge pool of capital. I can tell you that if the Israeli stock market tanks, the paper value of those options and the actual value is going to be a hell of a lot less. But he's now, talking excitedly about, ooh, it's all this money. What can be done with that money?
Working in this is for the banking, I can see he's already smiling because he wants the private banking to do. So $50 billion of options are available for the people in Israel. The second thing is the saving side of Israel is very high, and we are actually saving. They're saving in insurance, pensions, etc. We're talking about 3 trillion shekels we've got. The shekel today is 3 shekels to the dollar, 3 trillion, and we are making about 150 for the income that is coming from the 3 trillion. And the other thing is the new generation that is coming to work, creating another 250 billion shekels. It means every year we are creating another 400 billion shekels. Now this amount of money, we need to invest it in Israel, and if you will come and see what's going in Israel, it's booming. I'm encouraging everyone to come there and to see what is going. Everywhere is building, and new ideas is coming, especially on the high tech, and it's open for everyone.
Thank you very much. We can invest amount here as well. I was thinking first of all from the port.
I'm looking
Then
for.
we has
I'm looking
HDI,
for
we can
port.
set up a fund and start investing
So
even more.
So if you can talk to someone from the government to encourage us to buy a port, I'm willing, and also a shipyard.
I have a couple of people in mind.
So the moderator, this banker, Marino Yiannopoulos, is talking excitedly now of, buying a shipyard and a port. We want the Israelis, come and buy a port. We love you, all of that money. You're booming. Such a wonderful, vibrant economy. The sky's the limit. Not the slightest concern for the fact that Israel is arguably the world's worst human rights violator and is, as I mentioned, turning the entirety of West Asia into a disaster zone.
Mr. Halabe, ports will be central to the sector of IMEC. We just discussed about that. So ports are where strategic ideas become operational reality. So what are the main operational infrastructure requirements for ports to support such a corridor effectively? And how important are digitalization, interoperability, port efficiency, and regional coordination to make it IMEC commercially viable?
So thanks, and of course, good afternoon.
Just to be clear, this character is the CEO, or the chairman, I should say, of Israel Ports Authority. His name is Hetzi Halavia.
I think that in order to understand what is required from the ports, we need to change first the paradigm. Our region must operate as a single, integrated logistical unit. I don't think that IMEC can succeed if it retreats as a collection of isolated points. We must synchronize the supply chain end-to-end in terms of processes, infrastructure, bureaucracy. I don't see other way.
He says that in order for IMEC to succeed, in his opinion, all the member states are going to have to operate as a single logistical unit. That's how he put it, which means a very high level of integration of the economies, of the regulatory systems, of the infrastructure, the tax systems. And once you achieve that level of integration, it is well nigh impossible as a political and practical matter to disentangle yourself from these relationships, and you become dependent, or in a best case scenario, interdependent upon the other members of that unified logistical chain. So as I said at the very beginning of my reporting on the Maritime conference, the governments of Greece and Cyprus are going all in on Israel and are tying the fates of their own countries to the fate of the Zionist project, a project which by any rational measure is likely doomed. I hope that our audience has found our reporting on the Maritime 3 conference to be enlightening, and that this will motivate people who live in these countries. This isn't just about Greece and Cyprus, as you heard. This is also very much about the other countries of the EU, particularly Italy and France and Germany, which are signatories to the MOU upon which IMEC was founded. Your country's futures are all being tied to a large degree to the fate of the Zionist project. And if you don't act now, you may regret it one day. This is Dimitri Lascaris signing off from Kalamata, Greece on May 16th, 2026.